Hey folks, Kenny Jang here with Church Butler for yet another installment of our increasingly, I'm happy to say, popular Lunch and Learn series where we sit down across the interwebs. Thank God that Al Gore made it happen. We have our friend Mark MacDonald on the other line. Welcome to the show today, Mark.
You crack me up. It's
You
like,
cracked me up, Mark. I'm so glad we actually are able to connect here in Facebook Live and for the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Mark, where are you today? I love the set that you're on. You must be in Hollywood, California. Tell us a little bit about your environment.
yeah, I'm actually just outside of Winston-Salem in a bunker someplace. And I love North Carolina, but I am Canadian, eh? So I moved here, wow, it's been 17 years ago, and I'm from East Coast Canada. If you go all the way up Interstate 95 past you,
Yep.
and keep going up, we're 10 hours north of Boston, or 5 hours north of, or kind of northeast of Bangor, Maine. So,
Okay. So, how long have you been in Carolina?
we've been here 17 years, and when I was senior creative director for one of Eastern Canada's largest ad agencies, and just the whole time that I was working for them, I just kept thinking, why doesn't the church know these principles? And at the time, I mean, it was so long ago, most churches just pushed back against marketing principles. We're not marketing, we're just reaching people for Jesus Christ. And God loved them. I mean, they were doing a great job, and most churches were in decline. And what's really crazy, and I know we've talked a little bit before this that we're going to go into rants, but isn't it crazy that here we are, before the church got marketing principles, they were struggling. So now we have all these marketing principles, and here we are, we're all struggling again. It's like, 80 to 90% of churches are in decline or stagnation. They're not growing. They're not getting it. And, okay, so what was your original? Oh yeah, your original question was that here I am. I decided, you know what? The Carolinas is a great place to find lots of churches and to work with churches. So we moved here 17 years ago, set up an agency working entirely with churches. I get to go to a great church here, and I get to travel all across the country, speaking at conferences and talking to pastors. And my heart is with the pastor. Some of my best friends are pastors, and I know that what they're doing is incredibly difficult. And it was a couple of years ago, our church asked me, hey, you speak everywhere, like, why don't you do a Bible study or something? So I started a Bible study, and I had that feeling of a church plant. It's like, okay, so I wonder if anyone's going to come. And then the first day there was just a few people, and my wife said, so are you going to run this kind of like how you talk to the churches? And then of course somebody that came the first day was like, well, so what are we going to be known for? And I rolled my eyes, and then that afternoon I thought, oh my goodness, what a great opportunity. So I started kind of talking to people and saying, so what do you want in a Bible study? And they said, you know what? There's just so many complex messages and lots of things being said in church, but if you could just give us something that's really simple, that's all we want. So I thought, okay, I am simple, so that would be really easy. So I came up with this whole thread of simple and practical, and out of that, people started walking through the church and say, hey, what Bible study do you go to? And they're like, well, I go to this guy, Mark MacDonald. And everyone said, who? And they said, yeah, he's just really just simple and practical. And now, after a couple of years, it's not even been a full 2 years, we have 160 people on the roll.
Whoa.
So I'm not just a person who goes out and consults with churches. I run a small church, which I know the complexity of every Sunday having to come up with something to say to these people and to try to keep them engaged and to go out and reach the lost in the hallways of our church.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. That organic growth, it means that you have some principles there. And that being known for something is a great platform that I think you've built over the last several, I guess, decade, actually. Now, I need to interrupt because this is a choose your own adventure interview. This thing might go south very quickly. You need to disclose your affinities and identity. Blue Devil, Tar Heel, or Red State?
Oh my goodness. And you know, my one of my best friends is the voice of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. So I have to say that I pay attention to that amount of sports, and I don't follow any other sports. And the thing is, I could go off on something, and I have never watched a basketball game in North Carolina.
What a safe answer. Safe answer. I will disclose. I actually lived down there for 7 years, 7.5
You went
years.
to Duke, right?
Being a Blue Devil myself, and so was in the ad agency down there in a regional shop in good old Durham, North Carolina. As we proceed. We'll proceed lightly because there might be some ulterior motives of that safe answer there. So let's talk about your book. You've got a book coming out that quantifies and really captures some of the essence of what you've been developing in this area. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it, and where can we get it, Mark, today?
Today, oh my goodness, you'll have to come and rob one for me. Yes, I have Be Known for Something, and it's about reconnecting with your community by revitalizing your church reputation. And it encapsulates, it's almost 32 years that I've been doing this, and I've taken all 32 years and crammed it into this book. And ultimately, I guess, as we've been talking about the whole Be Known for Something concept, we've gotten a lot of attention from various sized churches, and most people that contact us can't. They just can't afford our process. It's a really, really deep process where we figure out for the church what they should be known for in their reach area, and then how do you develop a brand and communication strategy around it. But for those churches that are smaller, I thought, you know what, they need a book if I could just put it all in writing. So the entire 200 and some pages is from start to finish of why we do this, how we do it. And then the last part of the book is entirely how should a church effectively set up a communications department? Who should they hire? What are what's the personality types that they should be hiring? And then also, how do they make sure that all the ministries in their church actually get along and stop fighting and start, tear down those ministry silos? Because oftentimes the ministries, they all have different messaging, they all have different looks, they all have different brands, and what ends up happening is that ministry silos will eventually destroy the church. And instead, what we want to do is we want to create one constant thread that everyone in the church understands that thread, and that thread corresponds with the people in their community. Every ministry rallies around that thread, and instead of having ministry silos, they actually support the farm. They make sure that the church is pushed first.
So, are you talking about Being Known for Something as a cause that a ministry should be adopting and be investing in, or is it some other type of notion?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit broader than that, and the more broad you can make your thread, the better. It's interesting. Go figure, but we actually based upon what Jesus did. And when Jesus was meeting with his disciples, he was making disciples and getting them ready to go out and do something outside of the church walls. And then he himself, it says that he left his disciples and went a great distance away and sat down and waited. That means that there was nobody there, but he knew at the well that there were going to be people coming along with some needs and concerns. And sure enough, this woman, this poor woman who has no name, walks up, and he instantly knows, if you're here, you have a need, and that's water, and you're thirsty. And he knew that, just like every church should know in their community, what are the temporal needs of the community, so that, like Jesus immediately looked at her and started to engage with her about water. And instantly he had a connection with her, because water, yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm going to, and there was a conversation that happened, but where I think a lot of churches stop short, who like that idea and that concept, is that Jesus knew how to make the turn from the temporal need, and he makes the turn to the eternal need. And he, what if I could give you water where you would never thirst again? Somebody who's looking for water because they're thirsty, and you're going to give me something that satiates me for the rest of my life and eternity? Yes. Well, the thing is that the church needs to make sure that they can make the turn. So whatever their thread is, the thing, the big concept of what they want to be known for, it should be more on a temporal level, not on a religious level, but that thread has to quickly tie itself to the scarlet thread of Christ's blood that's drizzled throughout all of Scripture.
Yeah, so this is I love your posture on this. And I love also a recent blog post that you put up at beknownforsomething.com talking about, is your church known by love this way? And one of the practical tools that you suggested, which we actually did in my past church, was the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And I will tell you that when I've mentioned that book to other ministry leaders, they've actually kind of looked a little quirky, saying, well, how do you use that? Or what would you do with that? Can you talk to us a little bit about why that's such a relevant book or conversation piece for ministry itself?
Oh my goodness, thank you. It is like you just lobbed this ball up in the air.
But the thing is, I think it is a conundrum. Some people just they don't see how it fits or why it would be relevant.
Well, first of all, as you can see, I don't know whether you can see, but Gary Chapman wrote the foreword to my book, and he's the author of the 5 Love Languages. Gary and Carolyn are dear friends of my wife and I. And I mean, what an incredibly simple premise to his book of the 5 Love Languages. And ultimately, we oftentimes waste our love thinking someone's going to receive it in a different way than we give it. And we think we're loving somebody, but to them, receiving that doesn't mean love at all. And what we need to do is we need to make sure everything has to rise and fall on who you're communicating with. Everything has to rise and fall on how they're receiving it, not about how I'm giving it. And oftentimes the church goes, yeah, but we're just loving our community. But the problem is that the community isn't feeling the love. And
yes.
And to be put in a little bit cruder terms, you're all wasting your money. Yeah. Like you're wasting all of the effort. And so what we do is our whole process, and what I would encourage every church to do, is stop thinking what you do best, but start thinking what they want. And then, there's an intersection of circles. It's like that Venn diagram. You have, what your audience is looking for and what you're able to deliver, and where the intersection happens, that's where true engagement happens. And the scary thing is, with the church today, this intersection that's happening, it's barely happening. And we want to try to move those circles together so that we actually have a large intersection. And what I would encourage every church to do, similar to the 5 Love Language book, if I'm loving my wife in a way that I like, and she's not receiving it as love, maybe I shouldn't love her that way. Why wouldn't I love her the way that she wants to feel loved? And in that same sense, the church needs to start looking at some of its programs, and they need to start killing some of those programs, because it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and they're probably struggling in numbers anyway, so now's the time. Sorry, that was a rant again.
I love it. And, one of the things that communicators do struggle in this area is, how do you translate to the actual practice of social media management, right? If church comm people are going to be watching this interview today, and they're going to be saying, yeah, I get that, I understand it, I can buy into that, but what does that mean for the content that I'm supposed to be posting to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat? How do I actually, translate that to show that we are trying to be all about our audience and not about us? And again, I love your blog, by the way. If people here haven't visited the site, it's beknownforsomething.com, right, Mark?
That's correct. And
there's another post that I think struck me, which is, people don't talk about this, right? The church asked them, they didn't answer, right? Where you're trying to collect stories from the communities. You want to do it, effectively, and you post on your social media pages requesting, you want questions answered for, say, an upcoming sermon series, or do you have some type of biblical question that you've always wanted the church to answer, right? It seems like a great idea, but then things don't happen. So can you guide us through, even just, maybe we can use the next couple of minutes here in our interview today to be hyper practical, tactical. How do you translate that into what you literally are posting on social and engaging with people, so that people do respond and people do see what you're trying to get across in terms of being known for love and focus on them?
Well, it's interesting because, what a multifaceted question. And yes, over the next 4 hours, Kenny and I will talk about the answer to that. I've met some people who run social media, and I didn't enjoy talking to them. A lot of people...
I think that's the tweet of the day right there.
A lot of people who run social media...
What are their names, Mark? What are their names?
No. But a lot of people who run social media for their church can't carry a conversation. And so they wonder why their social media is not working. It's because they can't carry a conversation in reality.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I think that people miss that connection that they have to have with people. So instead, it's like, okay, this is the first time that we've actually talked, and I just want to go off and start talking about a bunch of things, because I think that we have a lot of connection. But the problem is that if you can't connect with people, and I'm more of an introvert than I probably come across, but if you can't connect like genuinely with people, then you can't connect on social media, because all of a sudden social media just becomes a yelling platform. It's like this advertisement platform where someone goes, well, I put it out on social media. It's like, really, did you have any comments? No. Should we? Yes, because social media should be a conversation. And churches have picked up on this and said, oh my goodness, we wouldn't have to have bulletins, which all should be killed, but we don't have to have bulletins because we have social media now. We have websites now. And the problem is that we've just become an advertising yelling mechanism where we're just yelling at everybody and they're not responding. So if people aren't responding, if my kids say, I went into the group and I tried to talk to them and no one wanted to talk to me, well, then you need to try a different approach. And a lot of times churches, it's, wow, it hurts when I do this. And you go, well, stop doing that then. If they're not getting the engagement from the community, they're not receiving it in the way that you think that you gave it. So it's similar to the 5 love language. I mean, it comes around full circle that obviously they want something different. And social media is an entertainment device. It is not a advertising device. And in the same way that we tune in, it's like, hey, so what'd you watch on TV last night? Well, I tuned into an hour of commercials, said no one ever, except for the Super Bowl, maybe. But ultimately, we're tuning in for the entertainment. So what should the church do? We need to start entertaining better. Oh, we're a church. We don't want to entertain. Okay, during your service, I'll give that to you. But throughout life, you've got to start entertaining and engaging with people in the way that they find entertainment. So like a good television show, which is about 80% content and 20% advertisements, then set up your social media so that for 80% of the time it's just pure entertainment. It's just engagement. Wow, I love when they pop up in my feed. Wow, I love what they just made me think about. Wow, I'd never heard that song before. Like whatever it is, find out who your community is on social media and entertain them.
Yes.
And then what you want to do is that, and I say 20%, but even less than 20%, throw in an ad every so often, and people go, whoa, that's good. That I'm engaged with this church, and they have that. I never expected that for a church. Yeah, I'll come to that. So how do you set up your entertainment? Do you just go out into YouTube and find a thing and that's what drives me crazy too. I could go off on a rant like that. Oh, isn't this funny? Oh, isn't this good? And the thing is that it's all this random crap. Can I say crap on your show? All this random crap that people are putting out, and there's nothing that would tie it together to a thread.
Yes.
And it's like, if you wanted to, say you've looked in your community and you found, oh my goodness, like way high levels of divorce. People are struggling with marriages. People so your community is in a bad situation with divorce. Well, maybe your church's thread can become, how do you talk better to your spouse? Or how do you create healthier marriages? Or something around that thread, some very broad thread. You create a tagline that is associated with your church all the time. Your brand starts to be associated with that benefit. And then somebody in the community might say, I don't want church. Oh, but you'll give me 5 ways that I can talk to my spouse this weekend to solve marriage problems? Yes, where do I download that? So then when it comes to the entertainment value on your social media, look through YouTube, look through memes, look through all the things that are out there that are really good entertainment, but choose the ones that only help relationships, help healthy marriages, help conversation.
Love it. Yeah, one of the things that I go through with some of my coaching clients is that you have to have a felt needs assessment and a map for the audience that you're trying to reach, and prioritize that, right? It's not about you. Put down the megaphone, pick up the telephone. Let's have a conversation, and let's actually be something interesting and be known for something. And I love what you're pushing in the posture. Again, it's a posture, right? Even the 5 love languages. I haven't read the book recently, but it's words of affirmation. It's spending time with each other, right? It's some people like receiving gifts. Some people like physical touch. Some people like acts of service, right? Acts of service. Physical touch. It is I think it's the acts of service, right? Being able to empathize and then finding the resources, doing the heavy lifting of the work, and then showing up in the quality time aspect of providing those resources and being willing to talk or being willing to use that platform as a forum for that affinity group, right? That's an easy way.
But also, I mean, they will know we're Christians by our love. Yes. Everyone always says, so what should we be known for? Well, ultimately, we should be known for love. But that love gets shown in a different way. And in the same sense, if you have a thread, what's really good as a social media person, because you're constantly looking for other types of content, know that everyone feels love and receives love differently. So if your thread is about relationships, have the 5 love languages right there and say, have I shown love about relationships that way? Have I shown it that way? And make sure that all the 5 love languages are shown through everything that you're doing in communications.
Yeah. I love it. So what else? Let's talk a little bit more about social, because I think what you're getting at is something that's critical on what's missing. Like, what my rant is that we both are in several Facebook groups, for instance, with tons of communicators, and it's the 80-20-90-10 rule. There's tons of lurkers out there. There's only a handful that actually take the time to engage in those forums, even amongst us as communicators. And that's supposed to be our tip of the sword, right? Even if you're an introvert or extrovert, why aren't the communicators themselves engaging in the forums that are supposed to help and serve our own community? And yet at the same time, they complain about their own community in their church not engaging, right? So that's one of my rants. But I do feel like, do you feel that there needs to be some pastoral training, even some type of resources to that degree, practical theology for communicators? Because not everyone is in the role of the communicator that has a pastor background necessarily.
Yeah, and how important it is that every person who works in the church needs to be in the Word. Because oftentimes what I see is that people who work in the church, it's almost like they feel like they're exempt from having to do anything in theology because I work in a church. And how important it is to make sure, in order for you to actually be interested in sermons and in the series that's going on, do the heavy lifting to try to figure out how can I support my pastor more, so you can feed some stuff in there, or maybe he can follow your social media and go, whoa, that's a really great illustration or something that I could use in my sermon. Or maybe you engage your audience to a place where somebody responds to you and has a great story and says, you know what, I rarely ever comment on anything, but you really spoke to my heart here. And this is what happened to me this past week. And then the pastor can put it alongside of social media platform and say, I'd love to talk to you further about that. And maybe a video can be done from it, and it can kind of blow up into a sermon. But
yep.
Oftentimes the church communicator just decides all I am is just a service person. And they need to actively engage and make sure that they understand the topic that the church is attached to on their thread, but also whatever sermon series is going on, so that they can engage at a totally different level and maybe even more human level than the pastor can on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, definitely. So you put out this book. I'm sure you're going to go through a launch phase and tour and talk even more about this. What's on the horizon after that? Once someone catches this idea of being known for something they develop in their ministry, is there something else? What's the next book actually, though, right? To go deeper, to become a ninja at this, what should someone be paying attention to? What are you paying attention to these days?
Well, it's interesting because there's so much that in the branding world, we talk here about putting on your thread glasses. So once somebody has captured what their thread is, it's kind of like that first time like you buy a Toyota, and then it's like, oh my goodness, I'll be the first one to have this Toyota. And then you get into it and you drive down the street and it's like, everyone's driving the same car as me, because you don't realize it until your eyes are open to it. And oftentimes, once you know who your brand is, to be known for something, or your colors, the blue that we always have through all of our colors, I see those things all the time. Every time I look around, it's like, oh, there's something, and that connects to our thread, and this works. And every church, once they know what their thread is, they'll be shocked and amazed at how much entertainment is out there that they can pull and you start seeing, and I'm not really sure what the next book's going to be. It'll either be something along that line or, and here I know we're getting near the end of all of this, but I'll throw this little nugget out. But I'm a national commercial model. I have a Volkswagen commercial out right now, 2 Men in a Truck. So I get to do modeling and acting on the side. And I'm thinking maybe the next books might be called The Model Church Communicator. What does it mean to be on show as a church communicator and be more active rather than this passive non-leader person who tries to have conversations but isn't really doing it properly?
That's an interesting take. I think I would love to see that teased out more. That actually is an interesting thread. And I want to see more modeling of you as the happy driver of more cars out there. Just for our audience, if they haven't seen the video of you and your fake wife in the front seats, where can they find that? Is that on YouTube or is that on your site anywhere?
Yeah, if you go to Volkswagen YouTube site, I think there's a series of them. Plus, if you follow Volkswagen on their Instagram and social media platforms, they're going to be we shop for an entire day in Charleston, and they have a lot of footage, and there was different demographics. I was the old guy. So it's like they have a whole bunch of young people as well, but they're taking all of those little snippets and they're being really creative with their social media. So there's a lot to be learned for that. Maybe it's just getting a group of people together from your church on a Saturday and just shoot lots and lots of footage and then just poll and do excerpts and try to figure out, so how can we communicate our thread this way and how can we communicate this way, and maybe even get each of your different pastors of your different ministries to be in charge of finding models. And I would strongly urge you, people don't choose me because of what I look like, other than that I look like their customers. So we need to stop just showing random pictures on our websites and in our social media. We need to show pictures of people who look like your community if you want to reach your community. Because if you don't want to reach your community and you just want to reach the people who come to your church, your congregation, we might as well just start planning your funeral, because you will go under really fast. Yeah.
That's, again, this must be the Rant-O-Rama show, because recently I was with a communicator who said, look, these stock photography sites are really expensive. You're telling me that they're too glossy, that I shouldn't be using them. What? I have nothing to use. And I said, you know what? With all the money you're spending on online resources, go find a local photographer on Craigslist, right? Everybody with a DSLR is a wedding photographer today, right? So find somebody, pay them $200, $300 a day max, so you can find somebody to come do either a day or two, maybe one day in the week and one day on Sunday, and just have all these different use cases where you have a shot list, and then you've got stock for a year that you can pull from, right? I mean, that's just an easy way to do it.
And the only exception to that is that if you happen to see a picture of me on stock, which you might, just go ahead and buy that one, but don't buy anyone else.
Yes. Be known for something. Be known. The model, the man, the myth. Mark MacDonald. So as we close out today's interview, where can we get another dose of your humor, your good looks, your pastoral abilities? Can you share with us some of your digits, as we like to say? Tell us where to send the carrier pigeon. Is it on Twitter, snail mail? How do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can find me almost everywhere on all, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, all under Mark Mac 1023. On Facebook now, there is author Mark MacDonald that you can find me at. Also, if you just go to beknownbook.com, it'll take you to our website right now, but hopefully in the next week or so, as all the pre-launch stuff goes up and the book becomes available, I think by Monday we should probably have that on Amazon, so that the publisher and I are actually talking right after this. So, but I think it's Monday where the pre-orders start. But by all means, and if you tweet me or if you talk to me, I will talk back. I care about every person who picks up their fingers and starts typing towards me.
Yeah, that's almost like the challenge in Micah that says, test me, test me, test me, reach out to me. Mark MacDonald, 1023. We would love to have the conversation on Twitter. Mark Mac. It's on the screen. The right. Yes, Mark Mac, 1023. Nice.
The only, on LinkedIn, it's Mark MacDonald, 1023. That's the only one.
Yes, we got it right in the lower thirds here. Yes, that's one of the things I appreciate about you is that your accessibility, you're obviously easy to talk to. For some people, easy on the eyes. And so we will stop this conversation here today, but I need you to promise to come back on after the book is launched so we can talk about even books, publishing, because I think that's another great tool that ministries out there are missing out on. Publishing is a powerful, powerful thing that changes the dynamics of authority and trust in a personal platform as well as institutional organizations of leaders in them. So
well,
if you're to come back, we'd love it.
Absolutely. But as a transition to that, a pastor might not want to write a book, or one of the church communicators that's out there doesn't want to write a book. Or you're thinking, man, I just want to write a book. Well, start with a blog. Try to figure out who your audience is, build your platform on the blog. Plus, your pastors should all have something on your website for a blog. The average person spends, 3 seconds on a home page, 10 seconds on an inside page of your website, but they'll spend up to a minute on a blog page. So I mean, you get 6 times the amount of attention on a blog. So do that and make it a transition into it.
Yeah. So I guess your position is blogging is not dead.
Blogging is not dead as long as it's written properly.
Nice. Okay. So folks, would love for you to thumb up this broadcast and this video. Leave some comments below. We'd love for you to let us know. We want to respond to your needs. For some of the topics, is it publishing? Is it blogging? What are the things that we can call Mark and say, hey, the people of the interwebs need to know, and get them back on here for our next Lunch and Learn. Mark, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Take care, and we'll catch you next time here on the Church Butler Lunch and Learn.